Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being with us on behalf of. Well, I don't know, Brad. Do you want to introduce yourself? I don't want to do it for you. Well, go ahead.
I'm Brad. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to chat with you about our program here.
That's perfect. I have nothing more to add to that, other than the fact that everybody looks very optimistic on August 14th. Everyone's tan and ready for the challenges and opportunities that'll come, and we know the first faculty meeting will come and maybe change that. Okay, well, this is being recorded, so let's get started. Okay, so today we're gonna kind of talk through things. We're gonna do a content overview and look at a list of folks attending, and some of you are using our program in your institution, and some of you are not. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the logistics of accessing the program, as well as, okay, how does this kind of fit into the curriculum, what we've learned, in offering it in year one, and then the all important discussion. So this is our second year of Brad and I doing this. We we work mainly with firms. That's our bread and butter of our business, and we really feel and felt when we made the decision to do this that there was an opportunity to have real impact in terms of bringing this content to the colleges and universities, quite frankly, around the world, and to do it and just to give it away for free. And and even you may notice, just starting out, because this will come up, even regarding the books, you don't actually have to buy the book to actually go through this. So we're not even interested in necessarily selling books. Don't tell Wiley that. They don't like to hear that, but it's really the truth. And so we're close to 100 colleges and universities, about 14 countries. I think I updated this. Yeah, I did. And three figures worth of students are going through the program monthly. So we're real excited about that. And one of the first questions is, does this meet learning objective requirements? If you're in the US for CFP board, the answer is yes. And if you're outside of the US, then it's for FPSB, which is the oversight body for the CFP marks around the world. It does for that as well. So we aligned all of that. As a matter of fact, when you get the documentation, we have the LOs. It's even mapped out. So we do everything relative to that. But those are the books, showing you the books. But again, they're not really required. I'll just say, the first of all, they're not textbooks. We wrote these to make sure that they weren't textbooks. A lot of firms use them. It's really about defining elements, and then Brad and me and Ted go directly to, okay, how does this apply? What to do in practice, and the scenario or situation in practice of where it arises. So it's not a text. It's just going to provide a bunch of definitions and terms. And we even worked with a large firm that basically said, we're not adopting the book if it's a textbook. And we're like, okay, this is our first true litmus test. And they came back and they did, because it's not a text. And then the toolkit is really a bunch of exercises that are kind of kind of exploratory about elements related to your biases and behaviors and whatnot impact your financial psychology. Brad, did you want to say anything more about the books?
Well, I feel like you're insulting all of us who've written textbooks, but it does cover all the goals and objectives. But we really, as Charles said, tried to make it engaging, something that practitioners would want to read. And we've gotten pretty good feedback from students around its readability, if you will.
Yeah. And I love textbooks. I did a 982-page handbook that's anyway. So here's all the different content areas. And no, as I said earlier, Brad and I made sure that everything was mapped to the LOs, but we also went beyond that, and we're going to kind of walk through that a little bit. But it's basically 5 different content areas. So we start with your financial instincts, basically how you're wired, how we're wired relative to decision making, mainly related, obviously, to money. We get through the behavioral finance piece. We walk through all this. That's probably the piece that's the most challenging, quite frankly, because we wanted to make sure that we included 48 heuristics and biases, but then we again talk about how they apply it. And behavioral finance is usually taught so poorly. It's usually just kind of these observations and not the so what to what happens in practice. And we really tried to do a good job of walking through, okay, here's what they are, and here's how they're relevant. Here's what you can do as an advisor or a future advisor to mitigate or at least address them or create an opportunity. We're talking about the environment. Your environment around you impacts so much of your decisions, so much of your behaviors, biases, and whatnot. Brad, why don't you do the next two? Clearly, we went together and planned this lecture out very, very carefully.
Yeah, so for understanding your client's financial psychology, we talk about the experiences we've had around money. So not just what's happening environmentally, but what has happened to you specifically, events in your childhood, what your parents taught you, what they didn't teach you. Some of our clients have experienced financial traumas, if you will, losing a bunch of money, either personally or collectively as part of a market downturn. And then how those experiences result in beliefs around money. So we talk about the research around money scripts and other research that's been done in that area. And then we focus also on what are some of the problem behaviors you might see in working with a client because they have beliefs around money that aren't serving them well. We distinguish between like mental disorders. This is what's really one of the challenges, I think, in integrating psychology into financial planning. We talk about, we're not here to treat people who have like a gambling addiction, that sort of thing. The average American, however, is engaged in some type of self-destructive behavior. So we want to talk about the commonly seen ones in financial planning practice, including like financially enabling is a common example we see in practice where clients are inappropriately supporting an adult child, for example. And what do you do when you run into those situations?
You're on a roll. Keep going.
Okay. Then we get into principles of counseling, psychology, communication. We have drawn from the field of psychology, more focused on what has already been applied. Some of that's been our research along the way. What have we already been applying in financial planning, drawn from the field of clinical psychology and counseling? So we talk about what are the sources of conflicts around money, interpersonal, intrapersonal, family systems. What are some of the basic communication techniques we need to learn to be effective in our work as financial planners? How do we work with couples in conflict, families in conflict around money? Very, very common experience in practice. And then looking at, as I mentioned, applying some of the approaches to psychology and counseling that work really, really well in the context of financial planning.
Yeah, and then we dive into elements of multicultural competence. Thinking about a lot of that really coming from the perspective of the advisor, having the advisor better understand their own biases. It's one of the been probably Brad and I's been in this business for 2.5 years, 2 years, I guess, total. And one of the biggest things that comes out with the firms is that they're talking about we need to better understand our advisors. We want to understand our clients, of course, but we also need to understand our advisors and the biases that they're bringing, because that's impacting retention, it's acquisition, wallet share, all elements of the relationship. So we think about that element of multicultural competence from a variety of different lenses and try to do it in a way, that's not going to bring in, any additional baggage or anything that sometimes that happens as political or anything like that. We try to be really careful about that. We obviously talk about risk tolerance. Learning style is a critical component. It's an LO. So we walk through how to basically address the learning style of a client relative to visual, oral, or whatnot. And then we talk about client values and goals. So we get into very specific things relative to not only on the goal setting side, but also thinking about helping clients achieve their goals, addressing roadblocks and things like that may come along the way for them to get to where they want to go. Getting the client to take action is by far the most popular module that we have on the advisor side. Everybody wants to know How do you get the client to adopt the plan? How do you get them to further engage, buy a product, whatever business model it might be? Everybody wants to talk about that, and we walk through the stages of change that individuals go through, and how that may impact whether they're going to take action or not, and whether the advisor pushing is a good idea or not. And usually, it's not, right? Crisis events with severe consequences. How to handle that? How to handle those calls when there's a bad diagnosis or something terrible has happened. How do you handle that? And we all know that advisors get those calls, and maybe changing the plan, adjusting the financial plan might not be the first thing that you should do when you get that call, right? And so we walk through that. We talk about that element of assessment, and obviously the role of planner. And Brad alluded to that, that we're not trying to create new advisors who are going to treat and diagnose clients, but really thinking about it from a coaching mindset. That what is the relevance of the profession, the value proposition of the profession now and in the future is going to be that interpersonal space and understanding their clients and being able to respond accordingly. So I already talked about the relevant relative to CFP requirements and also relative to FPSB requirements. They're all mapped. You get to see that documentation for any type of oversight body when you get, if you already are using the program, you've already gotten that mapping. And if you haven't and you get an email from us, you'll get that documentation. So the curriculum. So this is probably the thing that comes up the most. Now, we have people on here that are leading, I'm going to call degree programs. And when I say degree programs, I do mean that it's basically some element of a degree. So it's either a major, most of you don't have majors, but major could be a minor, most of you don't have minors. It could be a track or a specialization or a cross-campus certificate of sorts. I just kind of lump that together because it's just kind of, what we say traditional students. And then the other side is we call certificate programs, right? The non-degree programs, adult learners, most notably are individuals who are already working within the profession. So where do you put this? Well, I can say that of the universities that we're working with, people put it in lots of different spots depending upon the delivery method of your program, where you're housed. If you're a degree program housed in a business school, you're kind of painted into a corner from a curricular perspective, right? It's a little bit more challenging because you may not be teaching financial planning programs, probably not teaching investments, and probably not teaching tax. And so you only have a couple of spots. The intro piece is a good spot to put it as a requirement. And obviously the capstone course is a good spot to put it. Now, the programs that have had the most success are the ones that, regardless of delivery method, they're handing this out to all of their students and say, okay, you need to go through this program, meet that requirement, and then you're incorporating some element of that into your capstone. That's the ideal, particularly, again, if you're in a business school and there's a gap in between when the, let's say, financial planning faculty are really seeing the students, then that's the best way to do it. And we'll talk about, okay, here's how you get proof that the students completed it and whatnot. I will say too, and I think this comes up later in the deck, we're seeing a growing number of institutions handing over access to this program to their career center. So their advising center, particularly within their college, and saying, let's use this as a recruitment tool for financial planning. So now the students come, they go through the program, they get excited about working with people. They love spending all these hours with Brad and me. And they say, okay, I want to be a financial planner. And they hunt, and they find you. And they've earned a badge, which is really, really important, when it comes to them going on the market and whatnot. So, again, we kind of already talked about that, giving at the beginning of the program. They get all those different pieces. They obviously get the quizzes. They get the access to the lectures. It's on our platform, by the way. So basically the link, if you haven't done this before, the link is to our platform, and they go through it, and then they'll show proof. And then, but we also have additional 400 PowerPoint slides that you can supplement as part of your program. Wiley has those. And so if you received an email from us that has basically all that information, you have the email from Wiley saying, okay, I'd like to get the slides, and they'll by the way, they give you a review copy of the book if you want it. So just tell them you want a free copy of the book. They love giving out review copies. Don't ask for like 55 review copies, obviously, for all your students. They might be a little wise to that. I think for certificate programs, accessibility throughout the program makes a lot of sense. And then you have some sort of deadline by the end of the course. It just seems to make the most sense. Now, in some cases, some certificate programs really battle the capstone course because that's a tough course to teach in any program, but it's particularly tough on the certificate program side because you got advisors who've been working for, maybe 10 years, and they think they know everything relative to the development and presentation of a comprehensive plan. When in reality, in those 10 years, they may not have done any present. And maybe they haven't even developed a comprehensive plan, but yet they think they know it. So, they kind of have a little bit of ignorance as far as what it is, but they bring that a little bit of arrogance with them too. I see certificate people like nodding their head, like, yes, it's like a support group. That's a tough combination. So what you could do is, okay, let's take this program and let's go ahead and put it within the capstone course and then have them develop and present one plan. Whereas on the degree program side, you might have them develop and present two plans. And Brad, just jump in if you've got something that you want to say, or tell me how wonderful I'm doing, or whatever you want us to do. So what do you need to do? Well, we have all this stuff, so you don't really have to do anything. You don't have to pay anything. You get the videos, you get the quizzes, the LOs are there, and then the test bank questions. I didn't mention that. There's 200 of those, along with the PowerPoint slides that Wiley has. So getting started, then we'll open up to discussion. So the modules are all here. This is the list based upon the pie chart that we gave you. I won't read all of those to you, but they're all there. There's 14 different modules. As far as completion time, so for the programs that tell their students, get this done, within a 2-month period or whatever period you give them, for the most part, students will get it done on average in degree programs between 2 and 6 weeks, depending upon what carrots and sticks you're using as motivation for them, right? But that tends to be the case. So we don't usually see students completing in less than 2 weeks time, although it does happen. But for the most part, that's kind of the time frame. That's 500 minutes long when it comes to the quizzes. So you think about how you're going to implement this. Is it part of a class? Is it part of the program, which is our recommendation? And then they receive an email. I'll show you the email in a second, saying that they completed it. So the system will generate it. It'll say, this student has completed the program. They can hand it to you. If it's part of a class, then you have documentation that they completed it. And most importantly, they get a badge. I was at CFP, everybody out here knows, I was at CFP board for 12 years. And one of the things that was a big challenge for the universities that when talking to all of you was, because you got to get the experience requirement for CFP, the students want something on their resume as they head into the job market. And having this is one help. It's on their resume, but it can also go on LinkedIn and they get it for free. And, related to that point, we're talking to all the firms right now about this program. And a lot of firms are putting their advisors through it. A lot of times they don't get the badge, but they go through the content. And so we're really working with them to say, okay, these are students you should hire that have gone through this program. And they understand the value of it. They get it because in many cases, they're purchasing it for their own advisors. So there's opportunity there for you to advertise that you're using it. So particularly if you're a non-degree program, we have non-degree programs that have made announcements basically saying to the market, we offer this program. We have a partnership in offering the Psychology of Financial Planning Specialist program to our students as a marketing tool. We only ask that you share it with us ahead of time so we can see it. We're going to approve it. We think it's great. Just so you don't say, oh, we partnered with these terrible people. We don't want you to say anything bad about it. So it's got to be positive. And we're going to continue to talk about it. I mean, we see the growth this year. There's huge growth as this continues on in a number of firms, but also a number of individuals that are going through the program, whether they're advisors or whether they're students, and we think that's going to continue. So here's kind of what it looks like. Brad did a nice job of putting these together so you could see the visuals of all of that. That's what they see within the LMS platform. It's very standard. It's very easy to do, but you just give them the link, um, and they can go. And we ask that you don't share the link with anybody outside of the institution. You know, they've got to be a student at your school to have access to it. You can see the quizzes there at the end of each module. They have to get an 80% to pass, by the way, to pass each quiz. And then at the end, they get this, which they should share with you. So you can see here, boss completed his or her at 8:11, and they could share that with you as documentation that they got it done. Okay, so yeah, last thing. So email me. Brad doesn't check his email, so I mean, you can email him, but you won't get a response unless you write like cash in the title or something. So email me, and then you're going to get the web link. You're going to get the learning objectives, and we even give you like what you can a message that you can send out to the students with the link, and you can just share that via email. Here's how you log in. So we even do that for you to make it easy on faculty. So that's how you sign up. Just email me, and we could get you started today. And I think that's it. So happy to answer questions or comments or anything about that. Just open it up to dialogue.
Charles, I have one question for you. First of all, I used this last year. It was great. Thank you. Thank you both. The slide decks that you talked about, who do I speak with at Wiley to get those? Because that feels like that would be a good resource.
Yeah, that's Kevin Harold. That's in the email that you got from us when you got the link. His email is in there. I think it's kharold@wiley.com, HARRELD.
I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks for that unsolicited testimonial. Any other questions, or I'll stop the recording. So if anybody wants to share problems about their university, they can do that too. We could talk about that if you want.